It is always a fun debate, the boxing pound for pound rankings. And so let's see, where does everyone kind of fall in after a couple of big events? You had the Riyadh season fight card out in Saudi Arabia, and you had the Tank Davis pay-per-view out in Brooklyn. So where does everyone kind of fall in line right now? I will tell you that there has certainly been some movement here on this particular rankings. So at number 10, it is still Teofimo Lopez. He has a fight coming up. Probably stay off social media, my guy. But a lot of microphones for him to say some not awesome things into, but still an incredibly talented fighter. And the first two on this list, so Teofimo at 10, Devin Haney at 9. Both of these guys, when you're looking at putting guys in your pound for pound, it's like, oh, wait, that guy, oh, well, no, lost to Haney. Okay, well, but, oh, no, lost to Lopez. It's like, well, at some point, all these guys who I think are pound for pound level fighters are losing to these guys. Maybe I just put these guys in. So Devin Haney comes in at 9. He'll be fighting in that kind of epic 3-night event for Cinco de Mayo weekend, looking to put the weird Ryan Garcia fight weekend behind him. I think that one killed a lot of momentum that he had, but I still think that there is a lot of respect for him given how odd all of that kind of was. So the first two there, those remain the same. Now is where we have our first real change of things, as Tank Davis drops from 6 to 8 after the surprisingly competitive fight with Lamont Roach. You have a draw. I thought Roach did a lot of things on that fight, in that fight, that were impressive, and a lot of things that just kind of grab your attention, a lot of things to be impressed by. That being said, I just don't think if you faced the Lamont Roach of your division for any of the other guys on this list, that they would have that kind of a problem with him, regardless of the amazing performance that was had. So I just felt like you had to knock Tank down in the pound for pound rankings here just a little bit. At 7, it's Canelo Alvarez. The latest fight announcement, again, around Cinco de Mayo weekend, it's another dud. And I was with Canelo for a long time, and he is still my favorite fighter to watch. And will go down as one of just my absolute all-time favorite fighters in the history of this sport. And like I wasn't as down on the Munguia fight as a lot of people were, because I have a great respect for Munguia. And I think there was a lot of fights that, as someone who is a Canelo supporter, you can kind of say, no, you know what? This guy, yes, this isn't the fight, the big name we want, but this is still a tough test that he is going for. And instead, like you were kind of talking about, like, all right, it's Canelo and Terence Crawford. Like it's a guy who's quite a bit smaller than Canelo, who has seemed to have had a bit of a tougher time with guys who are his size, guys who are Canelo's size. So, all right, like that's not awesome, but Terence Crawford is a very good fighter. Okay, fine. But then the announcement comes out, and it is Canelo against William Skull, May 3rd in Saudi Arabia. And then you just get a bit of a with it. And so at that point now, I think you have to start lowering Canelo in the rankings. If he is not going to be taking on these high-level fighters, and for those who are unfamiliar, I just had to Google it, but William Skull, he's the IBF super middleweight champion right now. He won the vacated title after beating Vladimir Shishkin at in Germany in October of 2024. His Wikipedia page is about that big. That this is just not a... It's not a fight that should be something that a pound for pound level fighter has after having like the last fight against Berlanga. Like it's not, right? So you have to start moving Canelo down the rankings, I think. And in his place, now in both of their places, a few guys move up. First, it's David Benavidez, coming off of one of the biggest fights of his career. He is now hopefully set up for some big things. Now, it's all kind of stalled out a little bit because of the Beterbiev Bivol thing going to potentially a trilogy fight, but I still think big fights are ahead for Benavidez, and what he has shown so far has been really impressive. So he moves up in the rankings for me. At 5, it's Artur Beterbiev, who drops down from 4 to 5, and Dmitri Bivol moves up. I believe I had him at 6, 7, or 8, somewhere in there. So he moves up now to 4. He gets the win in the rematch over Beterbiev, and you have to think that these two are going to fight one more time. Debated it a little bit because I did have Beterbiev ahead of Bivol coming into this one, and so they're 1-1, so why does one get the nod over the other? Ultimately, it just kind of came down to me. You do have to, like, the way I look at rankings, you have to, whatever the results are, the results are. If you think, well, this guy should have won and matchmake off of it that way, you can do that. But in terms of the rankings, I do think you have to go by wins and losses, and then the impressive nature of those after to kind of decide some of those things. And so when Beterbiev beat Bivol, even though there was a lot of controversy around whether Bivol actually should have won that fight, the result was still the result, and so I think you have to put Beterbiev ahead. But now that these two are even in wins, then you look at who had basically the better loss. And Bivol, a lot of people were saying that he won that fight against Beterbiev the first time around. Nobody saying Beterbiev won the second fight. So Bivol gets the nod ahead there. And then our top three remain the same. At 3, it is Terence Crawford, who is daring to be great with a number of different potential fights, but we will see what is next for him. Alexander Usyk is at number 2, the undisputed, and then not undisputed, but unified and should be undisputed soon, heavyweight champion of the world, gets up at number 2 after a great run at cruiserweight and then an all-time run at heavyweight. But at number 1 for me still is Naoya Inoue, who is now going to be getting a bit more of a spotlight, fighting stateside and eventually out in Saudi Arabia as well. So the top 3 remains the same, but after that, a lot of change in our boxing pound-for-pound rankings.